Experience work interactions in a different and refreshing light. This is the Leader in You podcast, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about. We bring the science of attachment and emotional connection with insight from the last 20 years to share how you can overcome conflict issues at work and build strong team relationships, as well as the connected culture.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Leader in You podcast. My name is Polina, and I'm co-hosting this amazing podcast with the wonderful Dr. Lola Gershfeld.
Hello there. Hi, Polina. So nice to see you here again. Welcome back.
Yes, so today we are so excited to welcome a guest here on our podcast. Welcome, Jaime, to the Leader in You.
Thank you, Polina and Lola. Thank you both for having me. I'm so excited about our conversation today.
We're so excited to have you here. Now, we're really eager to hear so much about you and what you've done. For those of you who don't know Jaime is an author, and she wrote a book that is based around all the same emotionally focused concepts that we talk about in the process, which is really great because, we take this process and we like to talk about it and share it and work with it in the corporate world. And it's really nice to have Jaime here, who is an expert in EFT, to share her perspective and what really motivated her to work in this field and share the knowledge that she has in her book. So welcome, Jaime. We're very excited to have you. And let's start off with you telling us about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have had a bit of a winding career path. My PhD is in couple and family therapy. And so I started my career as a professor in a graduate program, a marriage and family therapy graduate program. And in my teaching, I specialized in couples therapy. So I taught our, couples therapy course, the sex therapy course. Those were really the courses that I dove into. And in that process, I did get some training from Sue Johnston and Scott Woolley. So I attended the EFT externship with them. I was teaching EFT and supervising students who were learning EFT. I didn't end up continuing with my EFT certification because I moved into administration to leadership role in higher education, the most recent of which was an academic dean of a college. And that's really where once I was in leadership, that's when I really started to see some of the connections, I think, with attachment theory. Obviously, I was very well versed in how, like, our attachment styles and how those dynamics show up in couple relationships, right? I was working to reunify young mothers and their infants who'd been removed from their homes using attachment-based therapies in infant mental health. So I had some expertise in utilizing attachment-based sciences in those settings. And when I first stepped into leadership, actually, I had an experience with someone who reported to me. I was a new department chair and I had an administrative assistant, and she was wonderful, but at some point pretty early on in a one-on-one meeting, she said to me, and this was very brave and courageous of her, but she said to me, "Jaime, you have got to let me do my job." And that was a huge eye opener to me in that moment, because what I realized is that I knew and I had identified some of my, if you kind of look at like the EFT cycle, pursuers and distancer, I've always been a distancer. And I could kind of identify myself as, you know, having some of those avoidant attachment style tendencies, especially when overwhelmed and under stress. I really like to be in control. I really like to keep emotions contained, kind of under lock and key. And so when my administrative assistant said that to me, it just hit me. I was like, I'm operating out of these kind of avoidant attachment types of behaviors where I'm trying to, I'm in a new situation that is a bit scary and anxiety provoking to me. And I'm trying to maintain control and hold on tightly to everything and not let other people be partners and collaborators with me in the true sense of the word. And so that was my first realization that, oh, this is showing up in the way that I'm leading as well. And I actually started doing a little bit of more reading and research on leadership and attachment theory and attachment style, and was, finding some interesting research out there, and started doing some like lunch and learns and workshops for faculty, trying to kind of explore it myself and share it with others. I write the book. I thought about writing a book back then, over 10 years ago, but I didn't write the book then because I wasn't sure people were really interested, to be quite honest. But then something happened, I think, after COVID, because when I started talking about this again after COVID and kind of sharing some of these ideas with people, I noticed that they were much more interested. And so that's when I thought, okay, maybe now is the time to write this book. People seem open, they're recognizing that there's disconnection and that there's a need for, more connection, more belonging. And so I just decided it was finally time.
Wow,
That's a little bit about my story and how I got into into this work specifically.
so when did you write your book?
So the book was published or was released in September.
Okay.
So yeah, yes, very recently.
Where can people find your book? I know we'll hit on this at the end of the
Yeah,
episode.
yeah. Anywhere books are sold. So it's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookshop.org if you want to, support your local bookstore. So anywhere you buy books.
The title of the book is The Secure Leader
Yes,
by
the secure
Jaime
leader.
Goff. Jaime Goff, Goff.
Thank you, Lola.
So it sounds like that experience that you had really motivated you to dive into this kind of work
Hmm.
and connect it to like what it is to be a leader.
Yeah.
So what about like that moment where the lady said, or I don't know if what the
Hmm.
employee said that, hey, can you just let me do my
Hmm.
job? Like, was that a shift in you like, oh, I'm just trying to control everything in all these situations, and there's really something here that I need to work on so that I'm
Hmm.
not that way? Or what was like the emotional shift that occurred, the
Yeah.
thought process prior to
Hmm.
you actually like, because according to the attachment theory, anyways, everything that we do
Hmm.
is driven by an emotion. I don't
Hmm.
know if it's like
Hmm.
an attachment theory thing, but I mean, I think it's scientifically
It
that's
is,
what
yeah.
happens. Like, people don't realize that we are driven by emotions in that way. So, can you share a little bit more about like what was actually the transformative piece
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah, I think, I'd noticed some of these patterns of like withdrawal and, really trying to stay in control of myself emotionally in interactions with my husband and interactions with my sister, probably the two personal relationships where I could really see that playing out. And as I was going through my EFT training and everything, I was thinking about that. But I hadn't really thought about it in the workplace. And so already beginning at that point, like in my personal relationships, to like talk with my husband about this, like, okay, when I get quiet and I withdraw from you, or I'm giving you the silent treatment and shutting down, what's really happening for me is I'm afraid and I'm feeling, threatened, and I'm scared that, essentially that I'm going to lose you, right? In some way or another. And that's kind of what's happening for me in those moments. And so I had kind of gotten to where I was able to share and try to start kind of going down deeper and looking underneath the surface to identify what was really going on when I was shutting down. And so I think what I realized, and I'm sure in the moment, I mean, it was a long time ago, and I think it just triggered in me, and I really respected
Mm.
her. So I wanted to take what she had shared with me seriously and her job, and I should be allowing her to do and empowering her to do. I'm trying to maintain control so that I can look like I'm successful, look like I have it all together, and kind of cover those fears of inadequacy, right? Like
Mhm.
really recognizing that, appearing to be inadequate or, just anxious about being in this new role and trying to prove myself was what was really going on in my very controlling behavior toward her and, really not empowering her to do her job. And so, yeah, I think as I reflected on that, and I'm glad it was early for me. It was early in my leadership journey. It was my first leadership role because I think she saved me by kind of mentioning that in many ways and kind of bringing that reflection to me. She saved me from maybe years and years of toxic sort of trait, but I'm really grateful for that because I think it set me on a path of wanting to show up as a leader as much as I could in a way that was secure, in a way that I could recognize my own patterns and how those could inhibit other people
Mm.
and how I could be creating that cycle, that sequence of interaction with other people, either in a positive or a negative way. And so I think it set me on a better path in terms of being a better leader overall. So I'm really grateful for that.
Jamie, what's interesting to me
Mhm.
is that your background similar is to mine, that my aha moment came out of searching in my own attachment
Mm,
situation in my own relationship because I went to a couples workshop, Hold Me Tight by Sue
hmm.
Johnson. And that's where I started to learn about
Ah,
withdrawal and pursuer styles and attachment. And I kind of like made a link that workplace conflict is all about attachment and
hmm,
the lack of attachment. So
hmm.
it's very interesting how
Yeah.
your background also helped you to gain that perspective. And
Hmm.
as I was listening to your story, like thinking about it and talking to your partner to say, hey, when I become quiet or here when I avoid, this is what's happening for me. That takes a lot of courage and takes a lot of strength.
Yeah.
So kudos to you for being so courageous to share.
Oh, well, thank you. It is so hard. 20, we've been married for 24 years, and it's still hard. It's always hard. It always feels risky, right? And sometimes it takes us a little while and we don't do it right away, and we have to come back to it. And he has also gotten much better himself at like going, below the surface and getting down to what those attachment needs are for him and what his fears are. So it's not all me. I have to give kudos to him as well.
The same with me. I feel like the more we practice, the easier it gets.
Yes, yes.
And it was funny. We went to a restaurant over the weekend and we had a little kind of like a little disconnect during the dinner. And it was less risky for me to say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I got a little scared, when you
Mm-hmm.
responded like this. I felt maybe I did something wrong and I need to know that I didn't do anything wrong and I need that reassurance. It was
Mm-hmm.
so cute. He said, first of all, thank you for sharing. It takes so much courage and strength, And I said,
Mm-hmm.
it's so nice that you tell me that it takes so much. You
Yeah.
acknowledge my courage and strength. He said, well, you told me to say those things. And so it's nice that each person in the
Mm-hmm.
relationship wants to
Yes.
improve and participate because it is so important for us that
Mm-hmm.
we don't do this alone. We
Yeah.
do it together with people that we work with and we care about. So
Mm-hmm.
that's great.
Yeah.
I want to know also, when you were writing your book, what part of the book that you felt is like really important to share? Like if you were to talk about
Mm.
this topic, what part do you think is the most important or something that people like you really want people to know?
I think what's most important for people to realize is that we we don't show up in the workplace as this like separate identity.
Mm.
That's not how it works. That when we show up in our workplaces, and I think especially as leaders who, leaders are the audience, people in leadership roles are the audience for this book because they do have such influence, right, on the experience of their teams. And so I just think that's, for me, that's the most important thing is to realize that as a leader, when you show up in the workplace and you are leading your team, you are being informed by all of your relationship history. All of your relationship history is informing how you show up with your team because those are relationships too. And having some intention to explore that, explore, your past relationship experiences, how they've impacted you, the neural patterns and behavioral patterns that those relationship experiences have created within you. So, kind of gaining some of that self-awareness so that then as a leader, you can begin to identify what do I need to do to change that? And what do I need to do as a leader to create spaces where I and my team can flourish and where we can thrive together? So I think that's really the overall message of the book. And of course, I come at it from an attachment theory perspective and really point to how our attachment styles impact how we show up as a leader. So gaining some understanding around what attachment styles are and some of the research around how that impacts our behavior in relationships and in leadership is important too.
That is so awesome. I love that because I do think we talk often about like the emotions are an important place, are an important part of the workplace because we are just all still in relationships
Hmm.
and it's so, like foreign to people to think that it's acceptable to share their emotions
Hmm.
even now, as progressive as the society has become in the emotional intelligence world, that it
Hmm.
is so true. We are the same people in and out
Hmm.
of work. We don't leave our home and change scientifically, like physically, like
Hmm.
emotionally,
Hmm.
we don't change. We are the same.
Yeah.
So it's also interesting too, I think, with people who are the owners of companies or are at the very top of the company. A lot of times they tend to bring their work home and then they lose that understanding of how you can still connect in all the relationships out of the home and in the home, even as a business owner, not
Hmm.
just a team member and not just an
Right.
employee and not just like a part of a corporate company, but as a business owner, you still have those important experiences that even when you
Hmm.
do bring your work home, it still isn't necessarily like, oh, the problem is they're bringing their work home as much as it is like, oh, how can the relationships at home be just as
Hmm.
strong or stronger even when you
Hmm.
have challenges or difficulties with the relationships at your work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's awesome.
What
Yeah.
I like
And I and
about
I
what I like about attachment theory is that I think it helps us in a society where the society teaches to be independent. I think
Mhm.
attachment brings us the perspective of we can be more independent when we actually depend on each other. We
Yes.
create that felt sense of
Hmm.
being together in terms of needing each other and creating that felt sense of connection because that provides us a secure base, a platform, so to speak,
Yeah.
where we can take risks. We can go out in the world and risk and develop that sense of competence and autonomy, where we can be effectively independent with effective dependency on each other.
Yes.
To me, that was new to me that adults need each other in terms of emotional
Hmm.
security. And at the ATD conference, we talked about emotional safety. And I feel like once you really understand what attachment is all about and how important it is for us to
Hmm.
create that security in our relationship, then you really start to feel that strength and resilience in
Yeah.
yourself. Like you're saying, like, wow, I can actually manage stress easier.
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
go into that panic as
Yes.
fast as often as I used to go when I didn't feel that security in my relationship. That creates
Hmm.
peace, internal peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was very revealing for me.
Mm.
When you just mentioned that, I remembered a video I watched yesterday, and it was talking about how Americans are so like wired to be independent. And then they also are wired to look at codependency as a bad thing, like being codependent. Maybe it's
Hmm.
the codependent that's not, maybe that's not supportive in the relationship. But in another country, like there, it was referencing a country in Europe where they're taught like each business, even if you're competitors, we're not competitors. We help each other work together. Or if something that I do, I can't serve my client, I send the client to the next person, to the other
Hmm.
company. And so they have more dependence on each other to survive and thrive in their business than what we're taught here in the
Hmm.
US. So I think that's also, what we're seeing is the importance of being in a healthy, dependent
Hmm.
relationship.
Yeah. Well, and it's that collective sense that, and that's how I mean that's how we're wired, right? To have that collective interdependence between one another. That's how we're naturally wired. But yes, I think you're right, Polina. In the US and perhaps some other kind of Western cultures, it's kind of, I don't want to say beat out of us. That's not the right language, but that's just what's coming by, right? It's just like drilled out of us, like that no, like you're on your own, right? Like, and for me, like messages that I received like as a kid was the whole like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like it's all about your own individual hard work, and like what you have is because you worked hard for it, without recognizing like all of the other people and systems that contribute to your success. We have blinders, I think, in the US to that. Hmm.
Yeah, 100%. What
Yeah.
is one tool, Jamie, that you provide in your Secure Leader book
Hmm.
that someone can use or maybe take away from listening to this podcast?
Yeah.
It's helpful.
So in this particular book, I do focus on the leader, like him or herself, and what the leader can do to begin to undo or kind of rewrite, if you will, some of those anxious or avoidant patterns that they have to move toward to earn security, as it's talked about in the literature, to move toward becoming more secure in the way they relate to other people. And so I primarily talk about three different areas in which we can do that through kind of just reflective practice as individuals and in relationship to other people. So I do talk about the importance of strengthening your emotional attunement to yourself and others.
Mm-hmm.
And then, especially when it comes to being more emotionally attuned to yourself, like, right, you talk about that in like the EMC process. Like, we have so many of us don't know how to describe what we're feeling
Yeah.
or what we're experiencing. We have very limited emotional vocabulary. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things I talk about is becoming more sophisticated in your emotional vocabulary just to describe what you're feeling, right? To
Mm.
have nuance and to try to dig a little bit deeper so that it's just not mad, sad, glad. But what's really going on for you beneath the surface. So that's one thing is, I try to kind of give people some tools to get more in touch with their emotional experience. And then once you are in touch with that emotional experience, then what does it look like to regulate yourself more effectively? So, what are some tools and practices that you can use that when you are like when you those maybe old patterns of relating that are kind of driven by anxious or avoidant styles, when those are triggered, like what are some things you can do to slow your reactive processes down so that you can be proactive in the way that you show up and interact with other people? And so I provide some exercises for that as well, how to become better at self-regulation, identifying your triggers, engaging in some reappraisal. So when things don't go well, making sure you take the time to reflect on that and what you could have done differently, the stories you were telling yourself in that moment, what you were feeling in that moment that drove you to react in a negative way. And then I also have a chapter on connections and moving from disconnection to connection and how you can create deeper connection in safer ways with people at work. So I talk about attunement, like what does that look like in the workplace? How do you, and these are conversations that come up when I do workshops a lot. How do you balance empathy and attunement with expectations, right? Leaders always want to know that. Like,
Mm,
how do I maintain expectations
yeah.
and set expectations? And also, how do I stay emotionally attuned and how do I express empathy and validate what people are feeling? It's like because the perspective is we can't do both of those things. They don't go
Yeah.
together,
Hmm.
right? And I'm like, no, they do go together and they complement each other perfectly. And that you're actually going to be kind of like you were saying a moment ago, Lola, you will be more equipped as a leader or a manager to have high expectations and hold people accountable if you're very good at being attuned to your people,
Mm.
at validating their emotional experience, at being empathetic. That increases your ability to help your folks be high performers because you're providing that safe haven and the secure base. So I talk about that some. What does that attunement look like in managing that seeming polarity between
Mm.
those two things? And then, some other things, but those are just a couple of things I talk about in the book is, strategies that leaders can begin using to show up in a more secure way.
That is so awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It's a really
Yeah.
good point. It's something that we don't typically touch on in our podcast. So really
Hmm.
appreciate that you share that. I used to teach yoga for like a good 10 years, and one of the ways that I taught how to hold a balancing pose is I would tell my students we want to have what's called equality of opposition, where you have two opposing muscles pushing towards each other, but with equal force. When you
Hmm.
have two opposing muscles that push towards each other, then you can hold the balance for a very
Yeah.
long time. But you also have the flexibility to move forward, to move back, because balance isn't staying still. It's the ability for
Hmm.
us to move with flexibility, our weight to the right, our weight to the left, our weight forward, our weight back. So it's almost like the same thing, right? When you have
Hmm.
the ability to have those expectations and also hold the standards high and validate, regulate, de-escalate an emotional experience, then you have this
Yeah.
balance of both, which creates
Hmm.
that environment that keeps people balanced as well.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great metaphor. I love the yoga
I
metaphor
like
for
that
that.
too.
Yeah, yeah.
Jamie, it reminded me of a team that I was working with at a company, and they were really scared to let people go. Like if they were
Mhm.
not meeting their expectations,
Yeah.
they had such a hard time of first of all, sharing those expectations and
Hmm.
then saying, it's something like it's not working out. Maybe we can find another thing. It was always terrifying for them to do that. What was interesting as they started to create more security in their relationship and repair those connections, it not only became easier, but those conversations actually led clarity to the people who were in those roles.
Hmm.
So it didn't really like you didn't have to tell people it's not working out. It's they were themselves saying, you know what, I think it's not working out, and
Yeah.
just don't feel passion for this work or for
Hmm.
this job. And they were a lot more open to explore other options
Hmm.
when they actually repair the connection. So I
Yeah.
always say to people, if you have to let people go, first repair the relationship before
Hmm.
you let people go, because it will be so much easier for you and for the rest of the team. And I feel like people have a lot more understanding and compassion for
Hmm.
each other. You know,
Right.
the person who is leaving and the person who is staying.
Hmm.
So that's such an important point of
Yeah.
learning how to hold the balance when you
Hmm.
have expectation and attune. It's like holding two truths together, right, Polina?
Right.
We did a
Yeah.
podcast on it a few weeks ago, but can you hold that expectation and also empathize and
Yeah.
attune to the person?
Hmm. Yeah.
I love this so much.
Hmm.
Well, Jamie, is there anything else you'd like to add before we close the podcast?
I don't think so. Just other than I love the work that you all are doing, and I love that you are, hosting this podcast and getting these messages out there into the world of work, because like the two of you, I'm a kindred spirit and just believe that this is so important for people to understand and learn about, because connection really is. It's the foundation for all human flourishing, regardless of the specific context.
I love it. Well, can you share with us where people can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is www.drjamiegoff.com. So people can find me there. And then on LinkedIn, just backslash Dr. Jamie Goff, or just search for Dr. Jamie Goff and it will pop up there. And I'm also on Instagram. So LinkedIn and Instagram are the two social platforms that I'm active on. And yeah, so connect with me. I'd love to connect with anyone who's interested in this and wants to talk more about it.
Wonderful. And a reminder for those of you who are listening or watching, you can get Dr. Jamie Goff's book, The Secure Leader, any bookstore that's close to you, or on Amazon, or also probably your website. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Yes, yeah.
Wonderful.
It's a
Well,
great book. It's a great book. I read
Thank you,
it.
Lola.
And I really enjoyed what I really liked about the book. It has lots of exercises. And I
Hmm.
think you have also a journal that people can buy in addition to the book and do the work. And
Hmm.
really, it improves your awareness, understanding about yourself. And I think, Polina, in our session at the ATD conference, the one thing that you suggested to people is to learn about yourself.
Yes.
Learn, improve your understanding. I feel like there's no end to learning about yourself.
no, never.
Never.
There really isn't.
Never enough.
So I think relationships are important. And Jamie, you do a beautiful job on identifying the attachment styles and helping people to really learn about how they behave in relationships and
Hmm.
what they can do to actually improve their effectiveness in their leadership.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
thank
both
you
for having
so
me.
much. Thank you, Mom. As always, I love doing this podcast with you. And thank you to everyone who's listening. We're so grateful to have you here, and we're grateful for your time and energy. And most of all, we're grateful for your desire to want to be better in the workplace. And this is Polina and Dr. Lola, the Leader in You podcast. Remember, you can go to emcleaders.com to find the course information that's going to change your life. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. It's a joy to share these podcasts with you. Be sure to check out our previous podcasts and subscribe to join us at our next podcast of The Leader in You, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about. Until then, be well and be focused on your relationships. We'll see you soon.